Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so happy to see everybody here. It's such a beautiful resort, and it's such a great conference. Great job, Pat and Laiho. You guys did so amazingly on this conference. Thank you for that. And above all, it's truly an honor to be among the practitioners of like passion, who is passionately believing in conversion, A/B testing, and site optimization. You know, this is the same passion I found myself 6 and 7 years ago when I ran my first A/B testing. A light bulb started to light up to say, oh my gosh, after 15 years in various analytics disciplines, this is what I'm meant to do. It is such an amazing journey to kind of learn this A/B testing. But why do I love it so much? Because there's so much to A/B testing. You name it. It's analytical, it's science, it's creativity, it's technical, it's collaboration, it's dealing with ambiguity, it's building the bridges, it's project management, it's everything. Above all, it's voice of customer. Every click they gave us, they're leaving that scent. I think one of the presenters talked about the scent. They're leaving in there. By keeping our ears to the ground via A/B testing, we are honored what a customer truly wanted. And above all, A/B testing, to me, is instant gratification, right? We want to make a business decision, but how? When you run A/B testing, it's 3 outcomes. Help the business, did not help, did not matter. So you can make a business decision with your eyes wide open, make that, knowing the consequence of your certain business decision. It's amazing. On the other hand, A/B testing is a very complex. It's getting more and more complex. It's an interesting journey. Why is that so complex? Because it's such an innovative field. It's tracking a lot of our brain powers to continue bringing the innovation into the digital property. This is on the technology side. If you see the user side, right, there's increasing amount of touch points in how people are engaging with digital property, from PC to tablet to phone, now to the watch. You know, the complexity is in there. It's just keeping us practitioners on our toes, continue innovating the fields, meeting where the customers are. So today, really, when I think about my journey, 6, 7 years now, I was truly honored to be able to working for companies like Dell.com, kind of incubating their global personalization and behavioral targeting program from baby to seed to be successful. I was equally honored to building A/B testing practices at OfficeDepot.com, a $3.9 billion site here in the US, primarily in office supply type of thing. In Europe, it's Viking. So kind of really building the A/B testing from not doing A/B testing, $3.9 billion, to building testing some of the largest function on the website, from site search to navigation, from headers to footers to checkout, you name it, right? It's really, really powerful. It's a wonderful journey. However, hindsight, when I look at myself, it's also a very humbling journey. I felt like the more I do, the more I felt I know nothing. I need to learn more, continue innovating, right? It's really paradox in there, which I love this. So today, I'm having the equal humbleness to come here to share some of my stories, and above all, really learn from other people, wonderful practitioner insights, as well as just asking for your feedback. You know, A/B testing is another interesting thing is it can get complicated so quickly. Literally, if you're doing this 6 months heavily A/B testing, you're going to uncover the question that bothers most senior optimizer all the time, right? So it's really equal play field for us to be made the best innovation idea, best concept, best way to address things win type of situation, which we love it, even field. Today, for today's presentation, I wanted to focus on talking about 2 pieces. First of all, you know, some of the lessons and success I've seen, kind of building the A/B testing program from ground up. And I also want to talk a little bit about a lot of the questions that bothers me, or I learned how to deal with this. I'd love to share that and hear how you guys deal with that. So first of all, when I think about A/B testing program, just like I think we talk about this continuously, you said when you have A/B testing, you ought to have a hypothesis, right? Same thing with A/B testing program. First thing is goal. What do we try to accomplish here? What's the goal of the program, right? Here are some things I've heard, I've learned, I've done a little bit about is Some of the goals could be, I want to protect the business, do no harm, right? Or I want it to be damage control. Or it could be, I want get my money. I know locusts want the money, give me my ROI, right? Or the third thing would be gatekeepers for site changes, right? So based on the different goals, we wanted to gear the different program to tailor to really the business needs there. For example, if it's do no harm, then I'll just focus on the negative one with confidence. Let the business owners to make a decision on the winners and like statistically indifferent ones. Make the choice, I will focus on the negative ones, right? For damage control, it's similar to do no harm in terms of when you're finding something that potentially tested not win, but people end up implementing this, do the damage control. The goal here is really find out why things don't work, right? Only why leads into actionability, not the data itself. So in this case, using the quantitative and qualitative analysis, which I'm going to touch a little bit later on, is to answer that question, right? Guiding that decision making. Above all, doing the iterative optimization. Don't give up. It's not the end of the world. Just because it didn't work the first time doesn't mean you can't try it on, right? Just really having the culture of constantly testing. Never give up. Finding the iterative, taking action on those, make it better is really important. Now, the third thing, for example, if the building ROI is your goal, this is the area, I've done plenty of them. I will be the first one to say I am guilty, right, for the same thing. But now hindsight, if I'm doing this today and in the future, I want to be exceedingly conservative because there is a shelf life of A/B testing winner. You will taper off, right? What does that shelf life look like? So be conservative. If you're implementing the winner via the A/B testing tool, use your web analytics tools, continue watching. Did I see the lift? I think I tested as a winner. Watch for that, right? And also continue using technology to kind of, from a periodic standpoint, retesting them, to validating, to say, do I still see the thing I tested 2 years ago, right? Try to be really conservative when they talk about the dollars, right? The third thing is last goal, for example, if it's a gatekeeper of the site changes, that regard is kind of having the mentality of testing everything, right? This is where, from structure, the team standpoint, you gotta have a two democracy, data democracy process in place to be able to enable that organization to be able to scale, right? So it's really important to think through these factors. Now, what about the culture? What about A/B testing culture? What kind of culture want to form in the A/B testing organization, right? Now, when we A/B test, we all want to win. Nobody wants to go in there to lose, right? But it's not just about win or lose. It's about learning. I think, Lucas, you touched on that one, is you got to learn something. Here's why you wanted to focus on this. Because odds are, this is odds ratio, right? Odds are, this is something we've done plenty of this. We actually did a benchmark as well. Talk about a winner, only 1 out of 3 concepts in general are winners. The odds are 70% either didn't make a difference or actually hurt the business. The odds are not in our favor as a practitioner to want in there having a dollar sign always attached to it. So watch for the learning. It's really important. Second part, because the odds ratio is not in our favor, my gosh, I'm going to innovate like crazy. I'm going to test like crazy. Gotta scale the A/B testing volume, right? If you're testing 3, you only get a 1. But if you're testing 300, you get a 100. This is where accumulating that critical mass so you can reach in the tipping point is exceedingly important, right? Do that. Rapid innovation. The last thing culture-wise I've noticed, which I really want to instill further and further into industry, wherever I'm going, I'm going to say the same thing. When I'm leading the team doing this, I'm trying to instill that as well, is to say, a lot of times A/B testing today is in the tail end of the things, right? It's people already figure out the strategy, wireframe done, design is done, coded, then they A/B test. Because they're investing so further into this concept already, there's a lot of emotion went in there. It's very hard for people to say, you know what, I can live with my 6 months didn't do anything. Nobody likes that, right? So it's too much emotion in there because it's so far into the tail already. So I would love to push the A/B testing, which I'm innovating, push the testing to the upper of the funnel in terms of why not just being a toolkit for the designer, right? When they're designing, they're like, I don't know about this. I think I have a different idea. This is the perfect opportunity to give a tiny traffic on something easy to set up. For example, HTML, JavaScript, as long as it's not DOM manipulation, which is going to go pretty deep. The easy stuff, give the tool as a toolbox to the designer. Let them try that out. Then they can say, oh, I think I was going to design that. Nobody liked this. I'm going to change for this. Because they are not invested in there. There's no very low opportunity cost. They're more willing to actually listen to what the tool is saying rather than to say, I don't think I trust this, right? Which is a scenario I want to talk about that as well. The third thing is building a successful A/B testing program really boils down to three really important pieces: tools, people, and process. Tools, right? Picking the right tool, depending on what is, because there are a lot of heavyweight tools like test and target. There's also very lightweight tools like Optimizely. It's a wide spectrum of the tools, right? So which tool fits for that? Really wants to kind of define the objectives, strategy, and culture, then really do a good job evaluating the tool from where is this JavaScript on the source code? Where is the script? Where do I run a fire? In the top of the page or in the bottom of the page, right? Or when you look at the A/B testing analytics capability, looking at is outlier be taken out? Did I use deviation? Did I use IQR, right? How do I take out the outlier? Drill down to those questions, right? Get scientific. Drill down, first of all. The second thing is, I think I heard one of the presenter talking, I think it was Michael, mentioned about he has a tool that don't have support. That to me is, you can have the best tool in the world. If you can't support me and bring my team in the best in class to learning your tool, it's no value to me. So really need to evaluating everything from the capability and to support infrastructure to feeding the analytics needs, right? Second part is people and also techniques, right? When I talk about the techniques, meaning really need to leverage the scientific things to make it credible. For example, concurrent testing, right? You run the concurrent testing. If I run it up in the funnel and lower in the funnel, how do I know there's no noise? Do that. Run the AA test when you set up the tool and do the advanced segmentation, having something documenting to say, watch, 50-50, 50-50, 50-50, the noise is even. Demonstrating that, establishing that credibility in there. And the other thing is having a lot of times when you talk about ROI, right? This is something we've done plenty of at Dell, which is really interesting, right? Having that robust winner declaration criteria. How long do you run the test? Are they converging and diverging? Where do you cut out the soft launch? When do you stop the test? Do you run it by weekday and weekends? All of these criteria need to be thinking through. So building the science in there. The other thing to kind of building the techniques in is, for example, a lot of times, tests being launched, people's like, how long does this run? Let's see. Not good enough. Coming up with your traffic estimator, your confidence estimator, that's something Lucas is laughing. That's something is at our fingertips. There's a lot of blogs sharing that. I'm happy to share the traffic calculator myself, Not good enough. You need to say, here is the traffic for the site, here's how many recipes you have, how many lift you wanted to expect it, and here's how long you need to run. You're going to run 5 days, here's where you're going to get confidence, here's 20 days, here's what you're going to get, right? Putting the science ahead of the curve, setting the right expectation, building the science in there so people can trust in you and building that credibility. I want to talk about credibility comes incredibly important when you want to sell a story that is not going to be good to sell. And last thing I want to talk a little bit about is the process. I talk about the tools, I talk about the people and technique, and I talk about the process, right? Process is so important because A/B testing touches so many areas. Touches product owners, touches UI, developer, QA, you name it. Who does what and when, right? It's really important to figure that out. When when things happen, things always happen, who is going to be responsible, right? Let's not rat hole in the situation, line up the efforts and get it done. Process is important. And also process helping you scale, right? Having a standard process, then everybody, whether they're doing a separate organization or doing a centralized organization, things can scale. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is, this is an interesting topic, is where does A/B testing organization sit structurally? Do they sit in, can they be independent organization just by itself? Or should they be part of the design organization? Or should it be a part of the development organization? Or in the agile development environment, does that sit into the agile scrum team, right? Where does the organization sit? I've seen different models structurally. I don't know how bookings.com is structuring, where is your A/B testing team? Are they buried into the scrum or buried in the team or?
Everywhere.
Everywhere, yeah. So, great, actually seen that very similar in Office Depot as well. We buried a lot of A/B testing expertise into the Scrum team so you can innovating, right? And at Dell, we have a centralized organization that you can just having a dedicated area supporting, but it's all part of the analytics organization. My key point bringing it up is wherever, whether they're dispersed and central, it's really, really, really important to have a central touch point in terms of having one person throughout the organization to be the person watching that too, to making sure it's setting up correctly. When you're making rapid innovation into the website, don't break this thing. And this thing do break, trust me, all the time, right? And that's the first piece. The second piece is having a centralized data science or an analytics function to be that neutral party, define the framework, define for different hypotheses, how do you do this testing, defining the winner criteria, all of these, so you can actually making this tool to scale without going off of a direction, right? Because this thing is very easy for people to, I interpreted it differently. This is great, but here is how we truly interpreted that. That's really, really important to driving the consistency, scalability, and also the credibility. Now, last thing I want to talk a little about is A/B testing prioritization. I think it was Brian, yes. Brian talked about this a little bit. So I wanted to mention that slightly as well, is A/B testing, right? If you start in the program, there's a lot of enthusiasm, ideas from the hippo, ideas from the people anywhere. They were like, let's do this. Well, how do I know which idea should I test? This is where having that, I call it expected value framework being established is really important. How about what's the revenue potential? How complex it is to do this? What's the strategic value? Fourth thing is, can it even be implemented? If it's not, cannot be implemented, why bother testing? What a waste of opportunity, right? Having this framework in there to really weed out the ideas that may not be good and managing the stakeholder expectations. And so you can focus on the most important ideas and so kind of maximize the opportunity cost of running the A/B testing. Now, on that regard, I also want to talk a little bit about, even if you have this framework, Hippo does have an effect. If a head of e-commerce to say, Yuan, go run this test, unless I can demonstrate this is going to be a horrible idea and only 2 people is going to impact it, I'm running this, right? Having that right balance, having the framework to guide your practice, but having the flexibility to kind of accommodate in the needs. Because you know what? A/B testing is about building the relationship, building the coalition, so that they will be on your side when you're making the decision that they're not wanting to hear, right? You want to build that partnership. It's incredibly important. Now, this is building the A/B testing organization. What about some of the learnings, some of the things that continue, sometimes scratching my head, I have to fine-tuning all the time. Those are some of the things. First of all, understanding side variance versus true A/B testing results. When the A/B testing has a lift, how do I know it's a true lift or it's just a noise, right? This is really, really, this can get your stuff being, this is a winner or, you know what, it didn't make a difference, or for that matter, hurt the business, right? So in that regard, when you configure the tool, a couple of techniques in there is, first of all, when you configure a tool, I'm a big fan of running AA before you do anything. Really kind of understanding the variance. Make sure the tool is actually structured in the right way. And above all, as you continue running the A/B testing, always leave a small amount of traffic to run continuous A/B, or on a regular basis, run the AA test, or at a periodic basis, run the AA test, making sure your tool is functioning correctly. Or when you actually run the big strategic A/B testing, which you can do AA test, AAB, meaning two control or one test. So you can understand the natural variance between the control recipe and understanding the AB. Or you can run AABB, meaning two controls and two tests. That way you can understand the natural variance between this as well as the A/B testing results, right? So for a large test, if you're doing something like cart checkout, navigation, those type of big things, it's good to just have that in place so you can understand truly what is the side noise and what is the true impact. Second thing I want to talk a little bit about is the shelf life. What's the shelf life of the winner, right? This is a cosmic question I ask myself all the time. By the way, I know I'm guilty. Sometimes I'm just like, this thing analyzed to be whatever $1 million. Really? A/B testing is a window analysis. And that 2-3 weeks you're running, there's so many things. Could be different. It could be a promotion going on. It could be marketing driver bringing the traffic in. It could be launching different products. It could be seasonality, right? There's so many variability. To say, just because I see it in 2 weeks, I can see it in a year, that's a huge, huge assumption, right? If you want to make that assumption, I'm not saying no. I'm saying use your before and after, watch it to see, do I see this thing still at 8, or no, it's actually down to right around 5, what I used to see before I launched the A/B. And also, at a regular basis, and flip it over. Like, for example, especially if you use a lot of A/B testing tool as a temporary implementation, you can just push the winner via the tool. Sometimes picking the sample size and turn them back. Picking the winners, handpick, maybe if you sample like 3 or 5 in the quarter, turn them back to see if I retest in the same concept, did I see the lift? If I see the lift, I book the revenue. If I don't see the lift, let's not book anymore because it's not there anymore, right? There is that taper effect. Watch for those. Another thing I deal with this all the time. This is my favorite question I get all day long. You came up with this robust analysis. You put all the effort in there. They're like, I just don't believe it. I don't like your results, and I just don't think it was correct, right? Raise your hand if you heard this. A lot of them. This happens all the time, right? So how do I deal with those type of things? There's no right or wrong answer. For those who raise your hand, I would love to talk to you guys regarding how do you deal with this? This is a really cosmic question. First thing I try to do is, especially those, a lot of times when this happens, is really the people who having this big, giant strategic test that they have a lot of vested interest in there. That's the time people tend to push back on the decision. Little ones, let it go, right? This is a situation, before I do any A/B test, first thing is like, are you going to do decision any differently if the result is not what you want to see? That's the first question. If the answer is, no, I think I'm going to, exactly. You see, Lucas already nodding their head. Practitioner, right? I don't know. I think I love this, and here's my baby. I spent 6 months doing this. I'm going with it, right? Then my suggestion would be, how about we don't A/B testing and do before and after? I'm not saying I don't watch for your results. I'm saying do a before after. We can do it that way. Because why? First of all, it didn't change your decision, right? Whether the outcome or not, whatever the outcome is, didn't change the decision. Why bother A/B testing? Because there is opportunity cost, this design, development resource, all in there, right? See if you can get away with that in terms of, let me just watch the A/B, or not do the A/B, just watch the before and after, just live with that, right? Sometimes they don't go very well either, because they want to do A/B, even if they don't want the result, they still want A/B. So in that regard, if you truly do an A/B, this is where I mentioned earlier about configuring the tool, really spending the time making sure you're picking the right tool, configure it correctly, watching the tool to functioning correctly. It goes back to one thing, data fidelity and credibility. That's so important, right? If you catch the error, which we will do, no test is perfect. People always can poke hole. But let it be hole poking from your own team, not from a stakeholder, right? When that happens, people's like, I I found the error. How can I trust your results when I'm finding error in that, right? So it's really, really important. Making sure you QA and QA and QA one more time. I know a lot of people using the automatic script, which is great. If you use script, making sure your script is updated, so it's captured all the changes, right? If you do manual QA, make sure you look at different platforms, different browser, within the same browser, different versions of browser, right? And making sure you use your phone, use your tablet, use whatever to QA this so that the experience look is what you expected. If it doesn't, that's fine. Just excluding those devices from your experience, then you don't have to worry about that, right? Having the strategy in place and how you're gonna manage those complexity is really important. And the third thing I try to do is, especially those big tests, I always say, guys, either when you're launching a brand new thing, there is shock factor or novelty factor, right? I always tell them expecting shock factor more than the novelty factor. I'm using an analogy of a grocery store. It's my neighborhood grocery store. It's not fancy. The organization is not that good. But you know what? I know where the milk is, where the egg is. I can grab it and go. I'm done, right? Now somebody coming here to say, this grocery store needs a complete redesign. Okay, new logos, everything rearranged in a different way. But you know what? I can't find anything. I'm frustrated. I'm gone. That is shock factor, right? So I always tell my stakeholder, when you're launching major changes, please don't run in there expecting it's going to win already. Expecting don't hurt the business. Start from there. Really lower the expectation down, first of all. Second of all is establish the success criteria and the threshold and the decision you're going to make differently prior to you launching this test. Literally to say, hey, when you launch this test, if it's winning, if it's 2%, what are you going to do? If it's 10%, what are you going to do? Of course, implement. Even if it's no change, you implement, right? But what about the ones negative? If it's less than 2%, maybe the decision is still implement. But what about is 10%? Are you going to say, I'm going to call it back, right? Define that framework before you launch the A/B testing. Not everything is going to be going that way, but at least you have a framework to take the emotion out of this, right? Putting something right in front of the stakeholder to say, hey, this is a real case. This could be 10%, right? If that do happen, it's not an argument. It's here's what we defined, what we're going to go do, and here's the results, what it truly is. Let the data speak for itself, rather than you telling them implement or not implementing. At the end of the day, if it's product owners, such like that, they are owning that charter. They want to make that decision, right? Give the decision to them, but in a way that's scientific, is objective, is data-driven, right? So that's really important to do those type of things. Last but not least is, why do people say, I don't like this, I don't believe in this, right? A lot of times it's because unless you have a reason why you give them something to do, what do you want them to make, right? This is why when I go into this situation, besides having the A/B testing results, a lot of times it's actually linked back into the web analytics too, so you can do advanced segmentation. Besides that, also do a lot of a qualitative analysis in that regard. You could use any of the user testing type of platform like usertesting.com or usability lab to really watch for, between two different experiences, what exactly do people like and don't like about that, right? Find out what makes that happen, first of all. Or you can use tools like a tea leaf, right? Which is a website replay technology to see where people are clicking, right? Or for that matter, not clicking. What would you expect them to do? What did they actually did, right? So using this to really figure out why, because only why is leading to actionability. Just because this didn't work, we didn't really give people, the decision maker, a lot of choice on what they're going to do, right? But if you have a why, followed by, because of the why, here's how we're going to iterate it, here's how we're going to potentially do the damage control, or here's we need to consider building into the change, then continue making the experience better, right? Finding that helpfulness factor to alleviate those kind of, I don't want to hear this, there's no value to me type of discussion. Last factor about dealing with people who just don't believe the data, and this is one thing, this being an analytics person, we believe in objectivity, believing in doing our best. And last rule, just do your best, let the chips fall, because at the end of the day, whoever is owning the site is making the final business call. We're here to be a trusted advisor, right? And be helpful, right? Building that bridges. For example, if they end ahead of implementing something, okay, let's see. Can I help you watch the before and after? Here's some additional concept. We can do the damage control to make it better. Those are the things helping building a long-term, sustainable, healthy relationship, because you want A/B testing not to be a one-stop shop. You want it to be continuous. It's a sprint. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon, right? You wanted to build that long-term relationship. It's not about you have to win every battle. For that matter, somebody else have to win battle. It's about building that trusting, collaborative relationship. Last thing I want to talk a little about is about scaling the A/B testing program, right? Earlier I mentioned about it's really important to be able to running a lot of A/B testing, because the odds are you're only going to count 1 out of the 3 winners, right? 1 out of the 3 tests is a winner. So how do you scale the A/B testing program? Clearly, I mean, standard practices, you can do split traffic, concurrent A/B. When you do those, definitely making sure the tool is set up to do it correctly. For example, if you use test and target, you can use global inbox to throttle the traffic to do the split traffic testing. If you use Optimizely, which is another tool, you can use the global campaign to split the traffic. Using those technology available to you, kind of be able to scale the platform. And of course, running the concurrent testing, upper, lower funnel, those type of things. Like I said, if you configure the tool correctly, in theory, it shouldn't cause noise, but continue to increase the velocity. The third thing is coming with some of the creative solutions. For example, testing in the like market, right? When I was running the global program in both companies, what I've noticed is markets such as US and Canada and UK, they're somewhat like market. Particularly US and Canada. So in that regard, if everybody, for example, if it's US company, all fighting to test in the US because this is your biggest market, I want the biggest bang for the buck, bring some of the concept into Canada to test it in there. Then bring the winner back into the US, or having winner here and scale to Canada, right? This will give you more domains to launch in the velocity of A/B test. And of course, there are different type of A/Bs can potentially scale. For example, you can do big strategic, changing the site search algorithm, cart and checkout, navigation, headers and footers, whatnot. And also, don't forget those little bitty colors and fonts, shape, text, all of these little things, right? Spending a lot of energy on those as well, because these are, believe it or not, I've seen actually more wins in those type of tests than big strategic tests, accumulating that critical mass, right? So you can launch in a broader scope of bigger and smaller tests. The other thing you could do is marketing drivers. This is one area I've seen in 2 companies now. Same thing in EA. It's very underutilized area. I don't see a lot of people running lots of very robust, digital marketing A/B tests. Meaning everybody is, here's my site, I want to optimize here, right? Which is natural, but don't forget there's 2 sides of coin. Bring the traffic in, which is your marketing driver, and e-commerce one thing here that you optimize, right? Don't forget the other side of the coin. Now, I don't know how many people is optimized the email. Email, boy, great. And yeah, exactly. Email, paid keyword, where do they land, right? Affiliate, where should they go? My gosh, talk about ROI. These are really money out of the door to bring the traffic in, right? Where do you land them? How do you make it relevant for them, right? And also using A/B testing to understanding the attribution. My gosh, how long is my email effective? If my email is effective in a month, please don't bug people every week on that silly email, because it's going to get people to say, I'm not going to open it. This is just spam, right? Really leveraging A/B testing to really optimize truly what costs you money, which is marketing driver. I've seen some, but I don't see as robust of the e-commerce. I don't know if that's the case with Booking.com either. Also, yeah. So it's a great area to be able to run in the volume, generate the ROI, while not competing on everybody going to the site type of situation, right? And then last but not least, this is something near and dear to my heart, personalization and behavioral targeting, right? So this is something one of the panelists touched on that one as well. Personalization is hard to do because you want to figure out the right segment of customer and figure out exactly what they're looking for, so you're giving the right people, a segment of people, right experience. But you know what, boy, isn't personalization working? Literally, when I was doing that in Office in Dell.com, I'm seeing somewhere between 60 to 70% win rate. Boy, isn't that wonderful? It doesn't cover everybody, but it wins so heavily, right? Simple things like if people add the item in the cart and they left, they come back again. Really, on the main homepage, adding a banner to say, are you still interested in the products in your cart? Click here, directly take into the cart and check out. You don't have to go through the browse layer, cut right into the funnel, pick up where they started and taking them out, right? It can be a lot of, this is one thing we've done. Second thing, if you go to Dell.com today, they're still there amazingly, how effective it was. The first time you come into the website, you could be a consumer, it could be business, but if you end up to be the consumer and you're navigating between the desktop and laptop, the second time you're coming back here, you'll be a 4x2 tile for navigating you into different systems, accessories, seeking support. Again, it's about bringing the experience close to them so they don't have to, every time they come to your site, they start from where they started 10 times ago, right? Finding that efficiency in terms of the segmentation, that's a great way to scale your experience and above all, significantly increase the win rate. Now, it's been a really 7 years, like I said, it's a humbling journey. There's many other issues that we deal with, for example, dealing with conflicting results. When you're having 5 metrics tracking in there, 2 say one thing, the 3 say another thing, it's tricky, right? Or dealing with conflicting stakeholders, implementing one winner at a cost of implementing a winner in favor of one organization at the cost of another, right? It's a lot of this complexity dealing with organizational complexity and results complexity. So really, what's the method for the madness, right? This is the question that get me pondered every day, ever since, 15, 20 years ago when I'm an analyst, right? Even today, but this is one thing really beautifully I learned at EA, Electronic Art today, at a worldwide CE organization is, at worldwide CE organization, we have about 300 metrics. It's a contact center. I mean, it's about agent, it's about people, it's about operational efficiency. So we have a lot of measures, a lot of metrics, right? The question is, how do we run business on 300 metrics? You can't, right? It has to be a very small set of them. But how do you filter from something here to here? This is where data science kicks in. I'm a big fan. I'm the biggest fan. I'm becoming increasingly biggest fan for data science. Because ideally, data science is trying to help you finding out the causation, which is not very easy to find at all. Causation, no thing, is very hard to find. But it can help you find out the correlation. What does correlation do? Correlation, I'm going to borrow Amelie's words, make you work smarter, not harder. Because imagine stakeholder to say, here's my 50 metrics or 30 metrics I want to track. Imagine you equipped with your analytics to say, hey, based on the science, data science work we've done, these 5 metrics are not related to what you measure here at all. Don't even bother to put in the system because they are not related. Really putting the relevant related metrics in there, you will make your metrics getting smaller, getting more relevant, weed out the noise, so you can truly measure what's really important. So one thing, if I can close my presentation, would be, find the way, when you talk about the A/B testing or analytics, when you figure out what KPI to measure, figure out the correlation of the things you want to measure and what are the things leads to that. That will really help you channeling, weed out the noise, and really avoid dealing with the conflicting results so you can channel the energy, measure what really matters. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.